If you want to know the most optimal way to build your Shopper Demon Hunter deck and how I hit Legend with an 80% win rate, then you have to watch this video. The deck is the most popular archetype in all of Hearthstone, with the duo of Window Shopper and Umpire's Grasp eclipsing usage among all class cards in the game by a ridiculous margin. With that much volume, there is bound to be a lot of variance and changes between deck lists. So what are the optimal choices for your rank? I'm Coach Ken, and today I'll give you everything you need to know about the Shopper Demon Hunter archetype, from what are the core cards, its matchup spread, what tech choices are available, what are the common mulligans, the best demon choices off of your shopper, and my personal list that I took to Legend with an 80% win rate. I've done the research so you don't have to, so spend 10 minutes with me learning the nuances of the deck so you can spend more time being legendary in your own life. And if that's too long, use the timestamps in the description below to find the topics that you want to learn more about. First, let's delve into the deck's main components. Central to the success of Shopper Demon Hunter are its core cards. The deck revolves obviously around the synergy between Umpire's Grasp and Window Shopper. Umpire's Grasp not only tutors for the shopper, but it also discounts the shopper, leading to incredible tempo swings. In fact, its mulligan win rate hovers around 60 to 67%, showcasing its efficiency. Ideally, you are playing Umpire's Grasp on turn 3 or turn 2 with the coin, and following it up the next turn by playing a 6/5 demon and maybe a 1/1 on your 4th turn. This follows up with another 6/5 on turn 5 with extra spells. This is quite a bit of tempo to deal with. Now when it comes to the deck, there are 4 variants. The aggressive variant focuses on early aggression, aiming to close out games by turn 6 or 7 with Window Shopper as the top end. Personally, I favor the aggressive variant for its faster paced gameplay and emphasis on Umpire's Grasp in the mulligan. On the other hand, the mid-range variant utilizes outcast cards and mana discounts with Midnight Wolf as the top end. This is a style that has been slowly shifting out of favor as it tends to delay some strong power swings in turns 3 or 5 for a later tempo push. Highlander decks really showcase how broken the interaction between Umpire's Grasp and the Window Shopper are. The combo is so strong that Highlander decks play the shell, -1 instrument tech, and play all of the good stuff Reno cards. This gives Demon Hunter access to other value and windy conditions that make the deck quite versatile and formidable. You have access to Reno, Kurtrus, CCG, a ton of different tech cards, Metronome, but what it gains in versatility, it loses in consistency. Sharpshooter version fits in a Naga shell with Blind Eye Sharpshooter as a secondary win condition. You look for your Grasp into Shopper game plan, and then transition into Blind Eye combo turns if the game runs long, but it is finding a lot of success at the top Legend. Of course, no deck is without its weaknesses. Drawing Window Shoppers without the mana discount or failing to secure Umpire's Grasp by turn 4 can hinder your momentum. Additionally, decks that disrupt the death rattle of your weapon can pose a challenge. And if opponents manage to weather the initial tempo onslaught, the deck can just flat out run out of steam. However, despite these challenges, Shopper Demon Hunter remains a formidable choice for ladder climbing. Now let's talk mulligans. Your primary goal is to mulligan aggressively for Umpire's Grasp or instrument tech. If you have Window Shopper in hand, always mulligan it away. Once you have Grasp or tech, you can consider keeping other 1-drops like Frequency Oscillator, Miracle Salesman. Remember, playing the weapon on curve is crucial for maximizing your win rate. You can forego this plan if you have like Oscillator plus Haywire Ziliax on the coin, because this gives you a very strong turn 3 play, but in most scenarios you are hard mulliganing everything to guarantee that you have the weapon by turn 3. Now let's talk about the choices of demons that you can get off of the Window Shopper. Window Shopper can pull from a pool of 11 demons. Not all of them are good, and some are better as a mini than as a 5-drop, so I'll just go through all of them quickly. The first one that's most notable is the best one, and that is Magtheridon. This is good whether it's a 5-cost 6/5 or whether it's a 1/1 mini. It remains dormant for 2 turns, dealing 3 damage each turn, meaning decks like Hunter or Death Knight are forced to lose tempo to play around it, giving you more time to build a bigger board. It is almost always the right choice. By the way, it's also a mech, giving more synergy with Oscillator and the mini bots. There is one situation, however, where I would not take Magtheridon, and that is if you are looking to end a game very quickly versus Shaman or Warrior or perhaps even Warlock. In some matchups, having an immediate body in the board is better than giving your opponent 2 turns to think of a solution to deal with the 6/5 mag that will eventually come. The 1 Amalgam Band is pretty strong as a 5-drop and can be interesting as a mini, although you would hope for better mini options. Remember, it holds all tribes and you are playing mechs, nagas, quill boards, etc., so it is a pretty decent pick if you don't see Mech as a 5-drop. Mythical Terror is the best epic demon available. It is most useful against decks that go wide with small minions like Hunter, where you can strategically pick him to clear boards and heal up life. It is not good as a mini. Eye of Shadow is subpar as a 5-drop, but relatively useful as a mini if you have weapon or an attack buff. It is one of my least picked demons. Illidari Inquisitor is a top 3 5-drop from Window Shopper. You gain Rush and the potential opportunity of more reach. It is not good as a 1-drop. Abyssal Basis is an underrated demon and a top 3 5-drop. If you discounted him through Grasp plus Window Shopper, he costs 1 mana. That's incredible, and 2 6/5s on turn 4 are nothing to scoff at, especially one with Lifesteal and Taunt. Eridar Deceptor is not good as a 5-drop, and personally not even okay as a 1-drop. This is one of the worst options, and I rarely ever pick this. Tough Crowd is not good as a 5-drop, but can be useful. It is very good as a 1-drop. Gaynard Glavesmith is very similar to Tough Crowd. Not ideal as a 5, but it does have its moments, but it shines as a mini. Battle Fiend is flat out the worst demon available from the pool. Let's take a moment to look at all the common cards played in at least the aggressive shell of the deck, and then I'll show you the cards I have opted for. I feel like these cards are the cards you'll currently see in nearly every aggressive Window Shopper deck. So obviously you get Window Shopper, you have Umpire's Grasp, and because of the nature of the deck, you do need Instrument Tech because those become very important. So we'll find Instrument Tech. So here, Instrument Tech is very important because Umpire's Grasp, having this in your mulligan increases your win rate to just insane levels of accuracy, right? Close to 70%. So the next closest card comes down to 60%. So having Umpire's Grasp in your opening hand is very, very important. As such, having Instrument Tech means you have 2 other ways to make sure you have that on turn 3. Essential to the decks, okay? Through Felon Flames, I think this card is very good. Being able to give your early game minions rush to get trades on the board and give them +1/+1 is very helpful for maintaining tempo. Also, this is good with like Posic later in the game where you can force a trade with the Posic to get even more stats on board. I do like this card very, very much. Burning Heart, I think this is also an auto-include in most decks. It's good spot removal against decks that are more aggressive than you, and this can give you extra reach against bigger minions or just to find lethal against slower decks. Miracle Salesman is just flat out the best 1-drop available in the game. 1 for 2/2. Death Rattle, trade for the Snake Oil to draw a card. Just very, very good, and the deck does need early game drops. This deck is all about tempo, and red card really fits into that. This is a great card to find lethal to get past, to bypass like troublesome taunts, or even just big game-breaking, game-winning minions. This can help you find the additional space to find lethal. It is pretty important, as taunts are one of the things that really can cripple Window Shopper Demon Hunter. Umpire's Grasp, we've obviously already talked about this card. This is essential to the game plan. This is a Fiery War Axe on steroids. You draw a demon, you're only playing 1 demon in Shopper, and you're going to reduce its cost by 2. So that is incredible. This is the highest win rate card in the deck, and this is why we're playing the deck. Ballhog, this is a pretty underrated card, actually. This archetype uses the hero to trade often, right? So you're going to be using your hero power, you're going to get buffed by the Naga or the Totem, and you're going to take some damage. So Ballhog is a good way to mitigate that early damage. You're looking at sometimes as little as 6 health, but often 9 health, right? Or even more. So pretty good card. Ziliax. I think you'll find Ziliax in most lists. If you are going to play Ziliax, the version I would suggest is Power plus Haywire, because this gives you the frequency oscillator turn 1 into coin turn 3 Ziliax, or even just turn 3 normally Ziliax without the coin. And then you have a 10-5 on turn 4, which is, hey, that's nothing to scoff at. But I personally think Ziliax is a trap. The other Ziliax, the ticking one, is the one that buffs the board. You never have a board wide enough, in my opinion, again, in most competitive matchups to really like warrant wanting to play this card. And I think there are much better options than Ziliax. Window Shopper, obviously this is what makes the deck so OP, right? You know, you draw this with off your weapon, now it costs 3, so you get a 6/5 demon 4/3 on turn 3 or turn 4, and then you get a following demon that's also 3 for 6/5 with other abilities attached to it, and then you get a mini, which is very, very cool, very crazy card. I hope this card does not get nerfed because it shows interesting playstyle, and you know, hopefully they just don't totally neuter the Demon Hunter class in a week. I believe those 17 cards are necessary for every window shopper deck. Even Reno will at least play singletons of all the cards I mentioned. But remember that Window Shopper is a deck that wants large turn 3 to 5 plays, and these cheap cards really help with that tempo. Here are some cards that you will see played in many lists, and you should pick these to fill out the rest of your shell. So there's the mech package, and the mech package revolves around Frequency Oscillator for mech discounts and Drone Deconstructor. And the cool thing about this package is, and obviously with Ziliax, so the obvious synergy is buffing Ziliax, but it's also good with Magtheridon, who is a mech, right? So there is that package. And the game does need early game drops, so, a couple of one drops, it never hurt anybody, okay? It's a pretty decent little package. Naga package has a couple cards. Parched Desperado. I play this even if you don't run a Naga package, because this is just a great cut and tempo card. You get to play this and you get to trade out or deal damage to the face. Pretty useful utility card. And in the Sharpshooter builds, it's also very helpful. Blind Eye Sharpshooter is played in the Sharpshooter versions of the build. So in those versions of the build, you're looking for the Umpire's Grasp early game turn. And if that plan kind of falls apart, then you kind of look to ride out a turn 7 or turn 8 play with a bunch of coins and Blind Eye Sharpshooter and Nagas to kind of find the lethal. Vicious Slither Spear. This is a pretty good one drop. If you don't run mechs, you should think about running this card. Even if you don't run the Blind Eye Sharpshooter, it's a good tempo early game card. Can get out of control pretty quickly, put some nice damage on the board, and it's also good with Sharpshooter, right? It's a cheap Naga for your Sharpshooter turns. The other package that a lot of decks tend to try to play is the Outcast package, and this package is most predominantly seen with the tempo versions of the deck. So they run cards like Bartendo Bot to draw an Outcast and put it directly on the left side of your hand. And when you do that, that means you are always going to be able to activate your Outcast. And when I mean Outcast, I mean Wayward Sage. So discounting the left and right card of your hand, also playable in Naga versions, as well as the Midnight Wolf. While the aggressive deck top ends with Window Shopper, the tempo version top ends with Midnight Wolf. So you can imagine a turn 3 or 4 Window Shopper, followed by a turn 5 Demon off of Window Shopper, followed by turn 6 into Midnight Wolf. It is slightly slower than other builds, but if you do get that nice Goldfish hand, it can come out pretty strong. The only problem with this is, remember, you want it to have the Outcast, so I do feel there are kind of situations where it's difficult to make this come off the way you want it to come off. And there's also Illidari Studies, which, discovering a card. It's a 1-mana spell. It's pretty decent. Get you good utility. Speaking of utility, there are a couple cards that I haven't mentioned that also do see play quite often. Taste of Chaos, which is, simply just spot removal, 2 damage, and if you get the finale, then you get the value off of it. So it does see a lot of play. Not a bad pick. There's also Spirit of the Team, 2-mana totem that gives you +2 attack until it's removed. I think it's a pretty underrated card. Very good. I play this in almost every list. And then the 2 other cards that I think don't see enough play are Wand Maker, because this gives you a 1-cost spell from your class. So that means it's going to use the Taste of Fel or whatever that is, or Burning Hard. Only good stuff, to be honest. So I am playing this in most of my lists right now. I think it's pretty good because it gives you a minion on the board and you get a little more value. And turn 2 is quite often the weakest turn for the deck. So having more turn 2 plays does feel pretty good. The other card that I think should see more play, depending on the meta you face, is Glacial Shard. Obviously, in the mirror, this is very good because this allows you to go off on your Umpire's Grasp before your opponent. So it's very good in that regard. And it's also good versus decks that want to freeze you. It's good against Warrior. It's also good against DK because of Quartzite Crusher. This can give you the space to kind of lock down on that. So those are all the utility cards. What I have not spoken about yet are the other legendaries that see play in the deck. And this is what you use to kind of fill out the rest of the remaining spots of your deck. Just going through the cards here, Going Down Swinging. This is very, very good against boards that go wide. So you imagine Hunter. But the reason why people tech this mostly is for decks that freeze your hero. So against Mage or against DK, or against people that are playing Glacial Shard, when you play Going Down Swinging, you aren't frozen, right? You break that freeze for the effect. So that's a good way to get rid of the weapon. I play this in most of my lists. I really like this card. It's pretty versatile. little fun fact, by the way, if you play CCG and you get the weapon, the Aldari Warblades, the one that lets you attack again every time you attack a minion, and you play this, every time you hit a minion, you get one more attack to the face of the enemy. So it is pretty insane, but that's a Reno list type of thing. So other choices here are Kayn Sunfury. This is very, very good as a finisher, especially when you're looking for lethal and you need to get through a board of taunts like Warlock or Warrior. But this is not good at any other point of the game, but it's pretty decent. I like it. Metamorphosis, this sees plays in most all lists, right? It's a good finisher. This is 10 damage for 6 mana over the course of 2 turns. Great card. This would be a hard one for me to cut from any list. Kurtrus, obviously that sees play in Reno lists. Argus the Emerald Star. There's not enough talk about this card, but if you're looking for a late game bomb, I would say that this is one of the best ones there. So instead of like redoing your deck with Midnight Wolf, why don't you just play Argus? Because Argus is one of his main abilities is to discount cards, minions in your hand by 2. So, you know, effectively making your window shoppers that are stuck in your hand much better. So I would say, like, if a person is looking to make their deck a little slower or have some type of insurance for a later game, this would be the card that you'd want to check out. In terms of neutral legendaries that you'd probably be interested in, Posic comes to mind. This is one that I play. 4 mana, 4/4. You know, if it trades out with the Through Felon Flames, you're going to get the 2/3/3s, which is awesome. You can disrupt the hand. It's not the strongest legendary, but it's just reliable. It's not super good, but it's just good enough. So this is probably the 30th card. If I found a card that I wanted to test, this would be the card that I would take out of my list. Other good cards are Leroy Jenkins. If you just need the reach, sometimes you just need an extra 6 damage, and Leroy provides that. If you're facing a lot of warrior, a lot of people tend to want to play this in their list. And lastly, I would say Hearthstone Brew, and I think this makes sense if you're looking for another win con for the late game. So the problem with the aggressive Demon Hunter list is you're all in on the Umpire's Grasp plus Window Shopper synergy. So if you draw Window Shopper before Grasp, it kind of feels bad. And once your opponent has dealt with the Umpire's Grasp turn, your game plan is out the window. Everything else is just not valuable enough. You have cheap tempo cards, but you no longer have tempo. You slowly are losing tempo. And because of that, I think Hearthstone Brew is a good out, because at that point, you can replace everything in your hand. Everything in your hand is cheap anyway, right? Replace it with a iconic synergistic hand from the past. This has actually won me quite a few games, and I think it is a very, very strong finisher, and I think more decks should definitely play it. That said, I want to show you the list that I played to Legend. I got to Legend with an 80% win rate from the Diamond ranks. I played most of it on my phone. I did play a few games on the PC, which you have seen in this video that I've shown you. But this is the list I played. It has all the core cards that I told you it'll have: Through Felon Flames, Burning Heart, Miracle Salesman, Red Card, Taste of Chaos, Instrument Text, obviously, Parched Desperado, Spirit of the Team, Umpire's Grasp, Ball Hog, and then Window Shopper, right? It has those. And for late game finishers, I decided to go with Posic, Metamorphosis, Going Down Swinging, and Hearth. And Hearth has been really good for the deck. Playing Hearth means I don't have to play Ziliax, and not playing Ziliax means I can make more space for other kind of utility type of cards or early game. So what I've done is I put Wand Maker because I have not enough 1-drops, and I've added Glacial Shard as a 1-drop in matchups where I don't have, I may need a 1-drop, but I've also a good tech card versus the mirror and versus decks which I don't want to face, like Death Knight. So this is my list. This is the list I played. 80% hit Legend. I would recommend it. If you don't want to play that, then just take out the cards that you don't like that are not core, and add the ones from the list that I just gave you that you think are helpful. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you found this guide useful in mastering Shopper Demon Hunter. You only have a week left to play the game, so find the list that you're looking for and go at it. If you enjoyed this video though, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more Hearthstone content. Until next time, happy hunting.